Chapter 13, Mesopotamia. First to develop. The first river valley civilization began in the Tigris Euphrates River Valley more than 5,000 years ago. In ancient times, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was called Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia means land between rivers. Most of its ancient region was not suitable for farming because it was hot, dry, and received only moderate rainfall. Deserts and mountains were not suitable for growing crops. However, the valley between and around the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was very fertile due to its climate. As a result, this region of fertile land in the Middle East became known as the Fertile Crescent. Here are the answers. Again, you don't have to write these down. All right, now we have favorable geographic characteristics. The Fertile Crescent had many favorable geographic and climate features that promoted the growth of Mesopotamia. Two of the most important characteristics were a source of water and fertile soil. Each year, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers flooded their banks. The floods deposited a fine fertile soil called silt across the surrounding river valley. Fertile soil and access to water allowed people to settle here and grow crops. The river also provided a natural route for transportation and access to other natural resources. The river valley provided a good habitat for plant and animal life. Additionally, the surrounding mountains and deserts formed natural boundaries that kept the valley safe from invasion. The rise of the Sumerian people. The first civilization in Mesopotamia was the Sumerian civilization. Sumer was located in southern Mesopotamia. Sumerian people both adapted and modified their environment to solve many of their agricultural challenges. Let's take a look at some of the advancements in agriculture that Sumerian people developed. Irrigation. In Mesopotamia, many nomads began settling in areas with rich, fertile soil that was perfect for farming crops, such as wheat, barley, and lentils. However, their farms could not be very close to either the Tigris or Euphrates rivers since both of them flooded often. They also could not depend on rainfall since it was inconsistent and did not bring enough water to their farms. As a result, Sumerian people dug a system of canals to bring water to their crops. The canals carried water from the rivers to their farmland. The canals formed the first irrigation systems. Irrigation allowed farmers to produce more crops on larger areas of land. As farming techniques improved, more food could be produced, and areas began to experience population growth. Production of tools. Each Sumerian farmers used simple clay and copper tools that often broke. To fix this problem, Sumerian people began to experiment with metallurgy to create a new type of metal that was stronger than copper. Because of their experiments, Sumerian people discovered that mixing copper and tin together would make bronze, which is much stronger and more durable than copper alone. As a result, they began using bronze to create stronger farming tools such as bronze-tipped plow, sickles, and hoes. These inventions also allowed farmers to plow larger fields and harvest even more crops. The use of animals. Sumerian people also were credited with domesticating animals, such as sheep, cows, donkeys, and even pigs. These animals provided resources that Sumerian people could use, like wool, milk, meat, and transporting goods from one place to another, rather than carrying crops by hand. Sumerian people invented the wheel to help them transport their goods faster, and over time, Sumerian people created wagons and harnesses for animals such as donkeys to transport goods from their farms to sale at local markets. Sumerian people also invented the sail to help merchants travel by river to distant markets. All right, here are the answers for the next page. All right, Sumer grows. Advances in agriculture and Sumer led to even greater economic growth. Population increases. Advancements in agriculture allowed Mesopotamian villages to grow because farming could meet the needs of more and more people. New technologies lead to specialization. Technologies such as irrigation, use of farm animals, and improved tools helped farmers produce a steady supply of food and even crop surpluses. As fewer people were needed to farm to survive, more Sumerian people began to specialize or become skilled in a single trade. Some artisans, such as weavers and potters, learned the skills to produce goods for trade. Other artisans, like metal workers and bricklayers, made tools and built houses. Merchants made a living buying and selling goods. Cities developed. Cities started developing as centers of production and commerce. Artisans produced their goods in the population centers, and merchants traded goods there. Soon, Mesopotamia was a collection of many small, independent city states. At city markets, farmers and craftsmen traded food, tools, pottery, cloth, and other essential products. Goods were traded between city states. Merchants also traded Sumerian tools, jewelry, and pottery to faraway peoples and brought valuable natural resources like wood, tin, and gold back to the cities. Transportation helps trade and growth. Wheeled carts made transportation of goods much easier. Merchants used donkeys or oxen to pull carts of goods between Mesopotamian city states and to lands beyond the Fertile Crescent. Over time, most well traveled trading paths became the first roads. Mesopotamians also built boats powered by sails and men. They used the Tigris and Euphrates rivers as a national transportation route. Government of Sumerian city states. Over time, governments developed to address issues that affected the community. Each Sumerian city-state has its own monarchy. The king of each city-state had absolute control over all aspects of a city's life. The king employed government officials, such as nobles, mostly the king's family, and priests to carry out his orders. The Sumerian government was responsible for making laws, organizing construction of irrigation systems, and establishing trade with other Sumerian city-states and foreign tribes. Civilization's first writing system. Mesopotamian people created civilization's first writing system. We call their writing system cuneiform. Mesopotamian people wrote cuneiform on clay tablets because paper had not yet been invented. Cuneiform was written by pressing a sharp reed or stick into soft clay to make wedge-shaped symbols. In fact, cuneiform means wedge-form writing. Each of the 700 symbols represented a syllable based on a spoken sound. Writing allowed Mesopotamian people to record knowledge permanently. It allowed them to keep track of things important for their success of their city-states, such as seasonal changes, crop production, trade transactions, and governmental affairs. Written records allowed Mesopotamian people to preserve the knowledge they gained. Also, written items also gave archaeologists and historians an important source of knowledge about their civilization. Instead of relying only on artifacts, they could figure out how to translate bits of their writing left behind. Also, fascinating fact, people who could write were called scribes. Scribes were the record keepers of the ancient civilizations. Alright, now we have the Epic of Gilgamesh. Writing was used for more than record keeping in Mesopotamia. Writing allowed the Mesopotamian civilization to create the oldest written epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh. An epic is a long poem that tells the story of a legendary or real hero. The Epic of Gilgamesh is about Gilgamesh, king of the Mesopotamian city-state Uruk, and how the gods challenge him to become a brave and fearless leader. Throughout the epic, Gilgamesh encounters many situations that test him. By the end of the epic, he proves his worth as a leader, and the people of Uruk proclaim his legendary leadership will live on forever. Mesopotamian measurements. Land was very valuable in Mesopotamia, especially as the population here grew. To measure land accurately, Sumerian people used a system of measurements based on the number 60. To avoid confusion, the Sumerian people standardized measurements. Everyone in Sumer used the exact same units of measure. Farmers used measurements to mark their territory. City government used measurements to record crop production. Builders used measurements to make clay bricks of identical size and shape. Sumerian people used units of 60 to measure time as well. They created a calendar that counted 360 days in a year. Have you ever wondered why there's 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour? Well, it all started with Mesopotamians' system of telling time. Alright, religion in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamian people developed religious beliefs to help explain the world around them. Mesopotamian people were polytheists who worshipped hundreds of different gods. They believed these gods controlled natural events like weather and the motion of the sun, moon, and stars. Mesopotamian people believed that natural disasters, such as flooding or drought, were signs that the gods were displeased. Mesopotamian people built temples called ziggurats. There, priests gave offerings of food, jewelry, and other valuables to please the gods. Mesopotamian people believed happy gods would reward them with peace and plentiful crops. Slave labor. Building a ziggurat was a massive project that required hundreds, if not thousands, of people to build. To fill these labor needs, Mesopotamian people used slave labor to build the immense places of worship. Some enslaved people used wooden frames to make thousands of clay bricks, while others carried the bricks to different sites or were responsible for the construction of the ziggurats. In Mesopotamia, slavery was part of the social structure. While many enslaved people had been captured during times of war, some people had to sell themselves into slavery to pay off their debts. Some of these enslaved people were able to buy back their freedom over time.